Hey everybody, DeathsStalker here. As you can see, my bike is on the work stand, and that can only mean one thing. It snowed last week, so my riding season is done. So I figure I'd give you a look at my bike while I talk about the last MotoGP race of the season. At Valencia, the fireworks started on Thursday with a sudden announcement that Jorge Lorenzo was retiring from MotoGP. Now some say the writing was on the wall early in the season, but I think the two crashes he had last season on a Ducati, then the motocross bike training crash, had him face the fact he was healing a lot slower now that he's in his 30s. Then he had the massive crash at Aston where he fractured two bones on his neck, and that I think was a tipping point. When he was finally able to return almost healthy, he found he was still not able to come to grips with the Honda, and he knew it was time. Of course, this started a mini silly season on who would replace him, since all the current riders were in the last year of their contract and unable to fill a seat. There were several HRC riders named, like Cal Crutchlow and Tadahaka Nagami, who could move but not without disrupting the LCR Honda team. In the end, Repsol Honda signed current Moto2 world champion Alex Marquez to a one-year contract. Now that that was all taken care of, on with the race. This year's race at Valencia was a little later in the season than past, and the weather was pretty cool. With the track only having a few right-hand corners, turn 4 and 10, both right-handers, were the scene of many crashes. Valentino Rossi fell off twice on Friday, along with several others. Ducati had test rider Michele Pero have his bike catch fire and had to jump off to keep from being burned. Andrea Dovizioso had his front fork leak under braking, and Francisco Bagnaia had his carbon brakes lock up while exiting the pits, throwing him over the handlebars and injuring his wrist, ending his season. Qualifying had most of the regular guys fighting for the pole, with Fabio Quartararo taking the pole with Marc Marquez second and a very fast Jack Miller third. The race start was held up for a few moments while a rider had to reposition his bike, and then there was some hesitation in the start lights. When they finally went out, Marc Marquez had one of the worst starts of his season, getting swallowed up getting off the line in 6th or 7th place. Jack Miller and Fabio were away with Alex Rins. Fabio quickly took over the lead and began to pull away from Jack, while Marc was wasting no time in cutting through the pack to catch those two. Marc had a much faster pace than Jack and passed him after a few laps. He then got on Fabio's tail and followed him for several laps before passing him for the lead. Marc then put his head down, pulling a gap on Fabio that he was able to maintain to the finish. Meanwhile, in the back, several riders were crashing out in the cool conditions. Cal Crutchlow lost the front end but was unhurt. Danilo Petrucci crashed in turn 6, tweaking his shoulder. Moments later, Johan Zarco crashed out in the same turn, and while he was walking away from his bike, Ike Lencioni crashed and his bike slid into Zarco, taking his feet from underneath him. The impact looked horrible, but it appears that Zarco only had minor injuries. At the front, the top positions never changed, and Marc Marquez would win his 12th race of the season and would break Jorge Lorenzo's all-time high season point score with 420, and that's another new record. Fabio would finish second, Jack Miller was an ecstatic third. But everyone was waiting for Lorenzo to finish. He had stayed out of trouble and rode a steady race to finish 14th, and was welcomed back into the pits by so many of his friends and competitors it was rivaling the final podium of the season. So with 2019 coming to a close, and on Tuesday, the testing of 2020 bikes has already began. I can't wait for next season. DeathsStalker signing off.